Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. But to welcome to the programme four exciting, talented performers who are going to show their talent with words and language as they try and speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Pam Ayres, and seated on my left, Josie Lyons and Julian Clary. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me keep a score, and she'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show this week with Paul Merton. Paul, the subject here on the card is just gravy. Tell us something about gravy in just a minute, starting now.
Well, some people describe it as meaty water, but I remember the line in Hancock's Half Hour where Tony Hancock says to Hancock...
No, sorry. Sorry, my fault. Hancock's an Hancock. I made the wrong decision.
She's doing you out of a job, Nicholas.
Yeah. I thought he'd repeated Hancock, but he said Hancock's. Story of my life.
Yeah, I said Hancock's Half Hour and Tony Hancock.
Yeah.
So we didn't repeat
Josie
anything.
kindly pointed that out to everyone.
Right. So, Josie, an incorrect challenge.
Yes.
Paul gets a point for that, keeps the subject, and there are 54 seconds still available. Gravy, Paul, starting now.
And he says to Hattie Jakes, I thought my mother was a bad cook, but at least her gravy moved about a bit. Yours just sits there and sets. I only mention that because the lad himself would be, it's been 50 years now since he sadly passed away, and the British Broadcasting Corporation...
Julian, you challenge first.
Repetition of B.
Yes. Oh, that's a tough one, right?
Yes.
Julian, you have the subject. There are 40 seconds still available. Tell us something about gravy in this game, starting now.
I married a northerner, so there's a lot of gravy goes on in our house, mainly on salads. He enjoys it. Gravy to me is, the smell puts me off and reminds me of school dinners, so I'm not keen. Therefore, we eat in separate rooms, which is unusual, but we speak to each other through the intercom system. How is the gravy today, my love? I say. He says, oh, it's right nice. It's slipping down a treat. So there we are, that's my...
Well, Paul's challenged.
Are you married to Les Dawson? You're married to Les Dawson? Ew.
So what's your challenge within the rules of Just a Minute?
Well, I don't think he's married to Les Dawson.
It's got nothing to do with this subject.
No, it's true.
He wasn't deviating from gravy. No. Julian, you get a point for an incorrect challenge.
Thank you.
Keep the subject. 11 seconds if you need it, starting now.
As a southerner, we call gravy jus, and I spend quite a lot of time reducing my liquids.
Pam, challenge.
Well, I thought there was hesitation. I also thought that jus was a pretentious twaddle.
Yes, it was, but there's nothing in the rules which says you can't use pretentious twaddle.
Some of us would never get going otherwise, wouldn't we?
So what was your other challenge?
No, I was being
No,
outrageous.
I don't think he hesitated. No. And
I just was so longing to talk about gravy, and
Yeah,
I'm not
I love
going to get the
gravy.
chance.
Oh,
it's very
right.
sad.
Well, I'm sorry, there's only
Tragic.
3 seconds left. And it was an incorrect challenge, so another point to Julian. 3 seconds more if you want it, Julian. Gravy, starting now.
Granules are very popular in a lot of households, and that...
So, the end of that round. Julian, being interrupted quite a few times, has got the points. He's in the lead ahead of the other three. And, Pam, it's your turn to begin. And the subject now is the Mediterranean. Tell us something about that sea in this game, starting now.
4 brothers of mine did national service, and one of them, Geoffrey, was in the Royal Navy on board the aircraft carrier HMS Eagle, in which he travelled all round the Mediterranean. And he wrote me wonderful descriptive letters saying how from the side of the ship to the very horizon, the water was alive with leaping and frolicking dolphins. Oh, compared compare that now with the Mediterranean, which I have heard described as an open sewer, awash with foul human refuse, old contents of the sewers and rubber goods fetid from the
Well done, Pam. You went for 57 seconds.
Oh,
No, sorry, 47. My arithmetic's not very good. 47 seconds. Paul, you got in there with a challenge?
Well, it was hesitation.
Oh, it definitely was, yes, as a whole.
It was.
So, there's still 13 seconds to go, and you have the subject, Paul, the Mediterranean. Tell us something about it, starting now.
There I was, trying to swim across the Mediterranean, and halfway through my journey, I realised I could travel no more. It was then that I suddenly conjured up the image of Nicholas Parsons in a sailor suit, leaning over a ship's bow.
Just to remind you, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Paul Merton on this occasion. He's now equal with Julian Clary in the lead, and Pam Ayres and Josie Lyons are trailing a little behind. And Josie, with you to begin.
All right.
The subject now, Liverpool. Tell us something about Liverpool in this game, starting now.
I have a great fondness for the city of Liverpool. Liverpudlians always seem to be such fun and very friendly as far as I'm concerned. But I would have loved to have gone back to the 60s and been one of those liver birds with the beehive and the mini dress and thigh boots, white lipstick and big black eyes, going off to the cavern, giving my coat in to Cilla Black, who apparently was a hatchet girl there for a while, and watching, of course, one of the best pop groups Liverpool has ever produced, Jerry and the Pacemakers. I absolutely adored them. Now, when I was on tour in Liverpool, I did actually go on a ferry across the Mersey and then to a beautiful Italian restaurant where the Liverpudlian stroke Italian waiters...
Oh, Paul
Yeah.
challenge.
Do we have a repetition of Liverpudlian?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did have a Liverpudlian before, right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, Paul.
It's all right, it's just a game, I'm all right.
She did go for 50 seconds, but there we are. But those are the rules of the game, so Paul, a correct challenge. 10 seconds available. You tell us something about Liverpool starting now.
As I left Birkenhead, I looked over towards Liverpool and I thought, that's where I want to make my name. So I said to me friends, Paul, George, Ringo and John, what should we call ourselves? And somebody's...
So Paul Merton speaking as the whistle gained that extra point, and he's increased his lead by 2 over Julian Clary, followed by Pam Ayres and Josie Lawrence. And Julian, we'd like you to begin the next round, Algebra. I don't know whether those were your strong points at school or not, but try and tell us something about it in this game, starting now.
It wasn't a strong point when I was at school, algebra. I was shocking at it until one day a new monk arrived called Brother George, also known as Father I Don't Mind If I Do. And he taught me, the mists cleared, and suddenly algebra made sense. And now x plus y equals z, brackets, make it up yourself, is something, it's a whole language that I have grasped. And I think back to my early days and think how ignorant I was. Algebra, it's...
Oh, Paul challenge.
There was two thinks, one after the other.
Yeah,
I
two
think back
things
to
in
the
early days. Right, so Paul, well listened. You've got in with 29 seconds to go on Algebra, starting now.
The former Vice President of the United States, Al Gore, invented a bra and he marketed it under the term Algebra. And people were very enthusiastic about it because, unlike other items of underwear, there was something revolutionary about this. Let me describe it to you in great detail. I know that is something that you don't want to hear, but I will nevertheless go into it anyway. It starts off with the fabric, basically 50...
Pam challenge.
Deviation from algebra.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah. I wouldn't be able to talk about algebra for more than 2... Well, apart from saying it, that's it for me.
I like the sound of that bra.
You shouldn't have challenged. You could have heard more about it.
Anyway, Pam, you've got him with 7 seconds to go. The subject's algebra. You have another point, of course, and you start now.
I might have won the Nobel Prize for algebra had it not been for the school teacher at Farringdon Secondary Modern...
So Pam Ayres was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and she has crept forward. She's creeping up on Julian Clary, which is not a very good thing to do. And just ahead of Julian is Paul, and Josie's trailing us a little, but not much. It's early days. And we're back with you to begin, Paul. The Italian Job. Tell us something about that subject in this game, if you can, starting now.
Well, it was a film released in 1968 with an extraordinary cast. Michael Caine, Noel Coward, Benny Hill. You can't think of another movie that has those actors in it, I suppose. You're only supposed to bow the bloody doors off, was so the most famous line from the film, because ITV, when they used to show it a lot in the early 70s, always trailed the entertainment.
Oh, Julian, you challenged her.
Hesitation.
There's a definite there, yes, so you've got in there with 42 seconds to go. The Italian Job starting now.
I had an Italian job once called Augustino and brought the tears to my eyes. It's an Italian job that I will never forget. I've been back there for my holidays every year to no avail. Where is that wonderful man? The Italian Job, as far as the film work goes, is not something I have had the pleasure of because I don't like watching movies. The Italian Job may have won an awards and star all these bizarre people that Paul Merton told us about, but frankly, I've had more fun looking at the man in the beige trousers in the front row.
Josie, you challenge.
Repetition of man.
Yes, indeed. Well, listen, Josie, correct
What
challenge.
are the chances of that happening?
Right. There are still 8 seconds available, Josie. You tell us something about the Italian Job starting now.
I absolutely loved that film. We are the Self-Preservation Society. The ending is one of my favourites, where the coach's teeth...
So, Josie Lawrence was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. And Pam, we're back with you to begin. Anyone for tennis? That's the subject. If you can talk on it, start now.
I have never been able to understand the appeal of tennis, where before a lobster-red crowd of spectators, people slog away, bashing the ball backwards and forwards to a chorus of grunts, moans, torn ligaments, sprouting cartilages, and I have failed.
Oh. Paul, you challenge first.
Hesitation, sadly.
I'm afraid so, yeah, after all that.
You're not sad at all.
He's delighted. You've got 37 seconds, Paul, if you want it. On anyone for tennis, starting now.
It's rumoured that when Humphrey Bogart appeared in his only Broadway play back in the 1920s, he had to deliver the line, anyone for tennis, and you can't think of anyone less suitable for such a particular choice of words. It has become a cliché of a particular drawing-room comedy where somebody would come in, Algernon perhaps, through the French windows and say, anyone for tennis, and everybody would sit around laughing. The sort of plays that Noel Coward was writing were then seen as a kind of antidote to that sort of entertainment. And one...
Pam, you challenge.
Wasn't there a repetition of Noel Coward?
Yeah, that was in the previous round.
In the previous round.
Oh.
If we're being challenged on everything we've ever said on this programme...
I thought you said it was a sort of drawing-room comedy that Noel Coward used to write. Clearly, I'm wrong. I will stop.
No, he said drawing-room comedies, which they were. Incorrect challenge. So, Paul, you have another point. You have 9 seconds if you need it. Anyone for tennis, starting now.
Nicholas Parsons never uttered these particular words because before he was on stage, the game hadn't been invented. So what people used to say was, anyone for fair as sticky?
Paul, you're incorrigible. You make these remarks at my expense, but the audience also applaud them. Anyway, you were speaking as the whistle went. You gained another point. You increased your lead at the end of the round of the others. And Josie Lawrence, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now, a very intellectual one. Madame Bovary. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Madame Bovary was quite a racy novel in its time, caused a bit of an uproar. Madame Bovary is a young woman who marries a doctor, not a very good one. Her dad has a broken leg, and that's how they meet. She's been brought up in a convent and thinks life's going to be wonderful.
Paul, challenge.
She meets her dad because he's got a broken leg.
No, I didn't say meets. They meet, I said. They meet. He's a doctor, her husband, and they meet when her dad breaks his leg.
So I nodded off halfway through that. I thought you said you had a broken leg and that's how they met.
No, I did not.
She said the dad had a broken leg.
Yes, the dad had a broken
leg. And the
leg.
doctor came to see the dad.
Oh, right.
And because of his broken leg.
And he says, oh, you've broken your leg. You have broken your leg, because he was French.
It sounded like he's married to Julian the first time.
She was showing quite a deal of knowledge about Madame
absolutely.
Bovary,
I know nothing about it, so I'm very happy.
I read it when I was 16, about 15 years ago.
Romance.
So an incorrect challenge, Josie.
Yeah.
A point to you for that, and you have 41 seconds available. Madame Bovary starting now.
The poor thing got very bored.
Julian challenge.
Repetition of thing.
Oh,
Oh, yes, you did say the thing before.
did I?
And Julian, you've got in with 38 seconds to go. Tell us something about Madame Bovary starting now.
Madame Bovary never seemed to be happy. She had a certain vision of what her life was going to be like. Fun, glamour, money. Didn't work out that way. Well, welcome to the real world, Madame Bovary. So she got through a number of men and she broke her heart and she was ill and then passed over to the great behind. That is more or less all I can tell you about Madame Bovary, unless, of course, I stray in order to fill up the time allotted to me.
Pam, new challenge.
A deviation.
He is straying, yes, so that's
I thought you were
deviation.
straying a bit, Julian.
So, Pam, you've got him with 8 seconds to go. Tell us something about Madame Bovary starting now.
Madame Bovary committed suicide by the consumption of arsenic, and I think a well-aimed blow with a...
Paul challenge.
Oh, sort of hesitation.
It was,
sort of.
yes.
It was. And
I
you've got him
hesitated with the mallet.
2 seconds, Paul. Another point to you. Madame Bovary starting now.
I took her into my arms and kissed her.
Right. So Paul's increased his lead at the end of the round, double the other 3. And Julian, Clary, we're back with you to begin a lovely horticultural subject now, Wisteria. Tell us something about that wonderful tree with its beautiful blooms starting now.
Oh, there's nothing I don't know about wisteria. I have a breathtaking example hanging around my back doors, which are generally open. My wisteria is not of the purple variety, but it's white. People come from miles around and gasp at its beauty. It's much more elegant than the traditional colour, and the wisteria, of course, passes within about a week, but what I enjoy after that is the little bits of blossom fluttering around the garden. It's like a wedding day every morning when I go out there and sweep it up. I put it in a plastic bag and sell it to the local villagers who frankly don't know the difference between this and the real thing. Wisteria is the first sign of spring, the little buds peeping out, and then pendulous big things hanging around in the breeze, and then they open and oh, it's breathtaking. The scent is something remarkable. I dab wisteria behind my ears, and I don't mind sharing that with you. It drives my...
So Julian gets a point for speaking when the whistle went, but going for the 60 seconds without interruption, or that hesitation, deviation, or repetition, he gets a bonus point. So and he's moved forward. He's only 4 points behind Paul Merton, our leader, and he's a few points ahead of the other 2. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. The subject now, abandoned ship. That's the subject. Tell us something about that subject in this game, Paul, starting now.
The Titanic had a band on ship, and they were playing tunes as the ship sank into the murky waters below. And they were
Julian, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed, yes. So, Julian, you've got him with 51 seconds to go. Tell us something about abandoned ship, starting now.
I was cruising once and I heard the terrible cry, abandoned ship. I said, but what about my wash bag? No, abandoned ship was repeated very sternly. So I leapt off, and goodness me, the water was cold. And I managed to crawl my way into a lifeboat and then blew my whistle. They said, not now. Wait till you've inflated the jacket part. Did you not listen to the routine? I said, no, I was asleep during that time on account of having half a bottle of gin. The whole abandoned ship carry-on was something that I had no interest in. What are the chances of having to abandon ship? I mean, we were on a pleasant time.
Paul, you challenged first.
Sadly, hesitation.
There was, yes. Paul, you've got abandoned ship. That's the subject. 13 seconds still available, starting now.
As the iceberg hoved into view, the message went out. S.O. first letter again. And we realised we were in serious trouble. I turned towards my inflatable Nicholas Parsons and blew him up. With her...
Do you carry this inflatable Nicholas Parsons wherever you go?
Yeah, it gets me good seats in restaurants.
Anyway, you were speaking as the whistle went. You gained an extra point for doing so. You've increased your lead at the end of that round of the other three. And Pam, we're with you to begin. Oh, a lovely subject. Hedgehogs. Tell us something about those delightful little creatures in this game, starting now.
Hedgehogs are under threat nowadays from cars, streamers, mowers, slug pellets, ponds which haven't got a shallow end, and all manner of hazards. They are endearing little creatures with black button eyes and small damp noses. Their diet is entirely benevolent and they don't do any harm to anyone, and it is likely that within the next decade they will become entirely extinct. I find this extremely sad, and in an effort to reverse this trend, I placed a dish of water in my jardin. Jardin, it was French. It was French. Jardin, I said. I did.
Yeah. So, Julie, you challenge first.
Jardin, I suppose that's hesitation.
Yeah, it was a hesitation or a deviation, whatever you want to.
It's my French accent. It's like no other.
Give her a bonus point. She did really well.
Thank you.
But, Julie, you get a point for a correct challenge, and you have 17 seconds. Tell us something about hedgehogs, starting now.
There's a wonderful woman in the Midlands called Joan who rescues...
Josie, challenge.
It was Midlands. It was hesitation.
And we
He
call
said it
that
wrong.
hesitation, yes. So, Josie, you've got in on the subject
Juicy. Yeah.
Josie, I said.
Yes.
That's your name,
I
isn't it?
I heard juicy. I don't know why.
I thought you were correcting me for your pronunciation.
No,
of
I
your
just
name.
heard juicy. It's my ears.
All right.
I think you're in there, Nicholas.
I don't need him anymore. Now I've got an inflatable one.
Yeah. Have you all got an inflatable Nicholas Parsons?
Yes. Everybody in the world.
Are they selling them at the door as they come in?
They can't give them away.
Right. Hedgehogs, Josie, that's the subject. And you have 14 seconds, if you need it, starting now.
When I used to look after our mum when she was getting on a bit, she told me a lovely story that had happened that week. She'd heard a rustle in the magazine rack, and there, amongst all the papers, rolled up was a little hedgehog.
So Josie Lyons got a point for speaking as the whistle went. Finish the story. What happened?
Well, she couldn't walk very well. She had a little walking stick. I said, how did you get rid of it, Mum? Because we'd been giving them cat food and stuff outside and looking after them. This one had come in after her. So she said, I turned my walking stick round the other way and very gently he just rolled out of the door with a croquet type thing.
Right, well, that was lovely.
Yeah.
And Josie, you've got another point. You crept up on the others. And Josie, it's your turn to begin. The subject is bowling. Tell us something about bowling in this game, starting now.
My family and mates love to go 10-pin bowling, but I'm a bit anal about it, and always when I know that a date has been set, I have to go to the chemist or the newsagents and buy a pair of cheap socks in order to wear, because I've got the thing about the bowling shoes. You don't want to get any kind of fungal thing or a verruca. So I just put those on. Doesn't make for a good date night, but still. Then you get your hot dog that tastes of nothing unless you put mustard and tomato sauce on it. And you get your beer, and there they are, the aisles in front of you. There are...
Julian challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah, because I was going to say 10
there
again.
we are.
And you had repeated thing earlier, but I let it pass.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Julian.
Julian, you've got in this time with the correct challenge. Another point to you. 24 seconds are still available. Tell us something about bowling, starting now.
My parents are very keen on bowling, as it happens. And did you know, when they have visitors round, the president of the bowling club has to wear gloves because she's under the impression that she's representing the Queen. Funny, isn't it? Anyway, bowling. They go on at it. There's a thing called a jack, I believe, and it's all about getting your ball nearest to the aforementioned thing beginning with J. It passes the time.
So Julian Clary, speaking as the whistle when, gained that extra point, and he's crept forward. And we are moving into the final round. And I'll give you the scores as we do that. Well, Josie Lawrence and Pam Ayres are trailing a little in third and fourth place, but it's a very strong third and fourth place. There are a few points behind Julian Clary, who is at this moment only 2 points behind our leader, Paul Merton. But Julian, it is your turn to begin, and the subject is the upper house. Tell us something about the upper house in this game starting now.
I graduated to the upper house from the junior house at St. Benedict's School in Ealing, and suddenly it was a new world. It was all rough and tough, and the bullying rather took off. The aforementioned place of schooling was a very gentle world, but the upper house was vile. There were boys wandering around, scratching themselves, squeezing their spots, and I was not of their type. I was already at the tender age of 15, sitting on the other side of the church. I didn't want to mix and mingle with all that rough behaviour. Goodness me, no. The upper house was something I suffered for 8 long years, and then I blossomed into a renowned homosexual, and I like to think that is in spite of my experiences at the upper house. Oh, it was horrible. Need I tell you more? Yes, I'll tell you a bit more. The upper house...
Oh, Paul, you've got in with 2 seconds to go. What is your challenge?
It's repetition of need I tell you a bit more? Well, yes, I will tell you a bit more. So repetition of a bit more.
Yes. Well, it'll be an interesting thing. I've got a point for that, Paul, and you take over the subject of the upper house. 2 seconds starting now.
Lord Nicholas Parsons looked me straight in the eye.
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. And for those interested in the points and the scores, I will give you the final situation. Pam Ayres came in a very strong 4th place. And she was 1 point behind Josie Lawrence, who was a few points behind Julian Clary. But out in the lead, 4 points ahead of Julian, was Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are the winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Pam Ayres, Josie Lawrence and Julian Clary. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such style. And we thank our producer, Richard Morris. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're also deeply indebted to this lovely audience here, who've cheered us on our way magnificently. So from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye. Tune in again the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to show their skill and talent with words as they speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, Jan Ravens and Rufus Hound. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me, it's Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show with Paul Merton. Paul, Seagulls. Tell us something about those amazing and interesting verbs. Verbs? I'll say that again. And we begin the show with Paul Merton.
Repetition.
Yes. But all I will say, Paul, is I can't repeat your name too often. Yes, Paul, you begin with the first subject, and it is Seagulls. Tell us something about that in just a minute, if you can, starting now.
The football team Brighton and Hove Albion go by the nickname of the Seagulls, and when their fans are coming back away from a game, they often walk down the street shouting this out, Seagulls, Seagulls. But the people who are hard of hearing think that the Nazis have arrived, because it sounds like Sieg Heil. But this is something that if you live in that area, you get used to very quickly. I used to live near Rye, and there's a...
Oh, Sheila challenge.
Use, to use.
Yes, to use.
Yes,
live, right.
And live as well, I think, yeah.
So, Sheila, a correct challenge. So you get a point for that. And you take over the subject. And you have 38 seconds available. Seagulls, starting now.
I really don't like seagulls very much. If you've ever been to St Ives, you will know why. You can't walk along that road with an ice cream without being attacked by these huge monsters. And they live on roofs, and because they're a protected species, you can't get rid of them. My daughter, who lives there, has a nest that she is terrified of, because when the babies are there, the big mummy seagull will kill you if you go anywhere near it. And they growl and...
Rufus, you challenge.
I think there was a growl.
That's
how they go, growl, growl.
Yeah. So in doing your impersonation meant that it was a repetitious sound, and so you have a correct challenge, Rufus. And you have 5 seconds if you need it, Rufus. Seagulls are starting now.
I was filming a TV show in Cornwall once, and the surf hire business little hut on this...
So Rufus Hound was then speaking as the whistle went, and he gains an extra point for doing so, and he's naturally taken the lead at the end of that round. And Sheila Hancock, we'd like you to begin the second round. A bad apple. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Well, I think it comes from a saying about a bad apple ruining a whole barrel full. And it is true that one apple can destroy a whole lot of others.
Oh, Jan, challenge.
Repetition of whole.
Yes, a whole apple, and you've got in with 50 seconds to go. Bad apple, with you, Jan, starting now.
The image of the bad apple is in a lot of mythological tales, including, of course, the story of the creation, where Eve ate an apple when tempted by the snake, and this released all the shame and evil into the world, and women were then subject to the pain of childbirth, so apples have got a lot to answer for.
Sheila Hancock challenge.
I'm not sure that the pain of childbirth has a lot to do with Eve, does it?
Yes, it does. It says in the Bible that women will now suffer the pain of childbirth because Eve ate the apple.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely sure. I was a Sunday school teacher. I know it doesn't seem like it now.
I think you're making that up.
No, honestly, it says all, and now you've got, you're ashamed of your nakedness.
Oh, I know they said that, but does it actually say...
What we need is somebody who was actually there at the Garden of Eden. Nicholas.
Jan, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say, as a Sunday school teacher, we go with you. And you have an incorrect challenge, so you keep the subject, and it's a bad apple. 23 seconds available, starting now.
A bad apple could be one that tricks you into thinking that it's going to be really tasty by being red and shiny and looking as if it's going to be delicious, but then you bite into...
Rufus, you challenge.
Was there a repetition of going to be?
There was. Oh, well listened. Oh, very sharp. So, Rufus, correct challenge. And there is another point to you with 10 seconds available. Tell us something about a bad apple, starting now.
I recently had my iPhone upgraded, but it didn't work, and I realised at that stage I had got a bad Apple product. I sent it to customer services, who sent it back to the...
So once again, Rufus Hound was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, and has increased his lead at the end of the round. Jan, we'd like you to begin the next round, and the subject now is Abba. Tell us something about Abba in this game, starting now.
ABBA first came to our attention in 1974 at the Eurovision Song Contest with their fabulous song Waterloo.
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of song. Eurovision Song Contest. With a song.
He's played the game a few times before, hasn't he? Well, listen, Paul. Correct, of course. 51 seconds for you, taking over the subject of Abba, starting now.
There are some song titles of Abba that you can't mention in the context of the rules of this game. For example, Knowing Me, Ditto You. S-O, first letter the same again. So there are many different tunes which they put forward. I am not particularly a fan of Abba. I do like their music, but I find that if I listen to more than 3 or 4 tracks in a row, it gets very samey. But I think the understanding is that the musical that they've put on Mamma Mia features different vocalists, so you get away from that same vocal sound.
Sheila, you've challenged.
Same. Repeat the same.
Yes.
Well, listen, Sheila. A point to you, and 22 seconds available. Abba, starting now.
Pop music is not my subject, but I know that they are called Abba because it's the initials of all their names. However, I don't know their...
Paul, you challenged.
A repetition of No.
Yes, there was.
Me knowing you.
I thought you were going to have a hesitation. So, Paul, you've got the subject back again. You have 14 seconds if you need it. Abba, starting now.
I remember when I first saw the group walk onto the stage. A, and then the others.
Sheila challenge.
It's a bit of a pause.
I think there was.
Yeah,
I think
I was going to go through their initials, and I suddenly realised I couldn't go BB.
So, Sheila, you got it back again. There's still 8 seconds available, starting now.
I know that they are Swedish.
Paul challenge.
Well, repetition of No.
Yeah, you did say you know before.
You said, I don't know much about pop music, you said. But I do know that their initials are... and then
right.
you said it again. I wouldn't have bothered otherwise.
No.
So, Paul, you got it back again. There's still 6 seconds available. Abba, starting now.
I remember on my 16th birthday, I was handed a long-playing record. It featured the Swedish soup...
So Paul Merton began speaking as the whistle went, and he gained that extra point for doing so. And at the end of that round, Rufus and Paul are equal in the lead, followed 1 point behind by Sheila Hancock and then Jan Ravens. And Rufus...
Trailing miserably behind.
No, not miserably.
Darling, you're only 2
Not
points...
miserably, actually, I'm having a lovely time.
Only 2 points behind.
Am I?
We don't want you crying yet.
No, I'm not.
I mean, you've been...
Yet. I mean, we break everybody eventually.
And Rufus, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now, pasta. Tell us something about pasta in this game, starting now.
There has been something of a food revolution in this country over the last 20 years, chiefly because of Jamie Oliver, who was able to convince the populace that there are all sorts of brilliant dishes you can make and new flavours that you can bring about by following the Italian way. Many was the time he looked down the barrel of a camera and expressed that but for a few ingredients and a bit of will-do attitude...
Paul, challenge.
Well, hesitation, sadly.
Yes, I'm afraid so, but the audience enjoyed it too, didn't they? 37 seconds are still available, Paul. Another point to you. Tell us something about pasta, starting now.
Well, it's one of those substances that's quite easy to cook, but I suppose difficult to make really tasty. When I was living in the bedsit in the 1980s, spaghetti was a staple diet. So you'd open it up, put it into the bowl, wash it all up afterwards and think to yourself, well, I suppose that was okay. Maybe sauces are the thing that brings the pasta to life. There are different types of pasta. One thinks of cannelloni, tortellini, pizzolini. These are all magnificent. I've made 2 of those up and nobody noticed. And I think one of the magnificent things you get with pasta... what happened then?
Rufus Challenger.
Repetition of magnificent.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's right, yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Drew attention to his mistake. Correct, a point to you, Rufus. 11 seconds still available, starting now.
The one thing that my mum gave me before I left home was a recipe for a good pasta sauce. As long as you can make this, son, she said to me, then you will never go hungry. And that has been my staple diet for the last 20...
Right, so Rufus Hound against you for the point. Gain that extra point. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. A pocket handkerchief. It's a very old-fashioned phrase, isn't it? Not a handkerchief, a pocket handkerchief. Oh, it's all lost on you, isn't it? Paul, you have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
When one thinks of a pocket handkerchief, one thinks of double-breasted...
Jan Chant.
Repetition of thinks.
Well, thinks, yes.
Oh, yes!
Jan, you were listening well. And you've got in with 57 seconds to go. And the subject is a pocket handkerchief, starting now.
When I'm watching old films and a gentleman gets out his pocket handkerchief and gives it to a woman who is crying, and then she blows her nose and she...
Paul Chandler.
Hesitation.
Yes, because she repeated
Because I was
she.
about to repeating she.
And you did repeat she, but he didn't have you for that.
He didn't have me for that.
You hesitated
No.
and he got you for that. Right.
Yes.
Paul, correct challenge. Another point to you. 46 seconds available. A pocket handkerchief, starting now.
A pocket handkerchief is seen by most gentlemen as an essential item of fashion that you stick in the top pocket of your jacket. One could associate this with cravats and double-breasted suits as well. And also, I think one links of neckties, those beautiful objects that go round your neck. I'm not thinking of Albert Pierpoint at this point, but he was the hangman, the last official one of Great Britain. But you know, there's something about a pocket handkerchief that's awfully very useful for you, because you can go to work and keep all your essentials inside your pocket handkerchief. Your house, keys, for example, your wife's name.
Sheila Hancock, the challenge.
You can't keep them in your pocket handkerchief.
What, your house keys?
No.
What do you mean? Why not?
Well, you don't keep them in your pocket handkerchief.
Yeah, but it's not physically impossible, is it? I'm not
I know.
trying to put a Volkswagen inside a hedgehog. Although I've tried.
What do you think, Nick?
I think that logically he's quite correct. I mean, I do agree with you. We would not refer to it in that way. We wouldn't put our keys in our pocket handkerchief, but he can say it if he wants to in just a minute, because it's not actually deviating from hesitation, repetition, or deviation.
I mean, Dick Whittington took everything in his pocket handkerchief on a little stick.
It wasn't a pocket handkerchief.
No, I think we should get on with just a minute. Paul, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say this. It was not a correct challenge, and you still have the subject, a pocket handkerchief, and there are 15 seconds available, starting now.
15 seconds left for me to talk about a pocket handkerchief. They come in many styles. One can imagine stripes, spots, or even maps of the world. I particularly favour...
Sheila Hancock challenge.
Maps of the world?
Maps of the world! You must have seen Nicholas with Finland ticking out of his top pocket.
He's living in a world of his own here. So that's not possible, are you?
Well, it is possible if you can. You get a pocket handkerchief and manage to put an imprint of the whole of the world.
During the Second World War, the RAF used to print maps onto silk hankies because they were very light and you could put them in. So if you did crash, you'd be able to look at a topological map and go. So it's only one phase up from there.
Was that what you were thinking about, Paul?
Exactly.
So, there are still 5 seconds, Paul, on a pocket handkerchief, starting now.
One only has to look back at the days of the RAF of the Second World War to realise...
So Paul Merton got a lot of points in that round with his pocket handkerchief, and he's leapt forward and taken a strong lead ahead of the other three. And Sheila, we're with you to begin now, and here's a chance for you to go off and tell us something about Provence.
Oh.
That is the subject, Provence, starting now.
Well, somebody who picked this subject must know that I live in Provence part of the year. It's the most beautiful place in the world. The beginning of the year you have cherries, and then you have love.
Oh, Jan, you've challenged.
Sorry, repetition of have.
Yes, and then you have, right. So you've got Provence as a subject, Jan. 46 seconds available, starting now.
The region of Provence is very close to Italy, and as such...
What? It's nowhere near Italy.
Well, and if you had a map of the world on your handkerchief, you would...
Région de Provence and Côte d'Azur borders on Italy.
No.
Well, he does stretch over towards the border of Italy.
Well,
You've
Sheila
got
lives
Monaco in between.
Monaco's tiny.
But Monaco's
Hardly
surrounded by
counts,
Provence,
but I mean,
isn't it?
you wouldn't say Provence is near to Italy.
It's near to
Well,
Italy,
it's...
but...
Well, go on and let's see what you're going to follow it up. See if there's a reason for that.
So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Thank you.
And say that you have Provence. And 42 seconds, Jan, starting now.
Many of the foodstuffs and things that are...
Paul Jan.
Well, there was a hesitation.
I think it was. So tell us something about Provence, Paul. 38 seconds available, starting now.
I know nothing about Provence.
Sheila, you were the first on the buzzer. You got in there.
Yeah.
Hesitation, of course, we call that. 37 seconds available. Provence, starting now.
The sun goes up to over 40 degrees in the summer. In the winter...
Yes, Rufus?
Temperature goes up, the sun doesn't. The sun is an atomic engine smashing hydrogen into atoms of helium.
Listen, if he can get all the rubbish that he's had, I can get the sun going to 40 degrees.
On a cool wash.
I think it's the way you express things, and I think the way you're expressing it was adequate for me to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Thank you.
And say, there are still 32 seconds. Sheila, tell us more about Provence, starting now.
The house that I live in doesn't have central heating or swimming pools or anything like that. It's very primitive in a small hammock where Swiss people and Spanish...
Rufus, you challenge first.
Splanish?
No, I didn't say Spanish, I said Spanish.
Sorry, it must have been your enunciation.
So shall I say that was deviation from the English language as we understand it? And so, Rufus, I've given benefit of the doubt to Sheila, so I give you the benefit of the doubt and tell you that you have 19 seconds on Provence, starting now.
Was it not Provence where I first clapped eyes on her? Black hair down to the small of her back, eyes smoky, cigarette burning from the corner of the mouth. And in that moment...
Paul, you challenge.
Oh, sadly hesitation, although he was getting me going.
Well, he's got you going close to the whistle, because there's still 8 seconds available. You have another point, of course, for a correct challenge. Provence, Paul, starting now.
There was a television show many years ago called A Year of Provence, which featured John Thor.
Jan, challenge.
It wasn't called A Year of Provence, it was called A Year in Provence.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. You're perfectly correct, Jan, so we have to give you the benefit of the doubt and say you have a point on Provence and you have 4 seconds to tell us something about the subject, starting now.
Provence is blessed with a very lovely climate, partly because of the Mistral wind.
Jan, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject is Old Mother Hubbard. Tell us something about Old Mother Hubbard in this game, starting now.
Old Mother Hubbard is a rhyme that I believe was written in the 19th century. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get her poor dog a bone. When she got there, the shelves were bare, and so the poor mutt had none. This goes on for some dozen verses, each of which has a little scenario happening. My favourite being where she goes to buy some shoes, and when she got back, he was reading the news, which gives a rather...
Sheila, you challenge first.
Hesitation, was it?
Right,
I can't remember.
27 seconds is still available. You have another point for a correct challenge, and you have Old Mother Hubbard starting now.
In the village that I live in Provence, there's an old lady who's got a rather skinny dog, and we call her Old Mother Hubbard, or Le Mère Hubert.
Jan, you challenge.
Well, I was going to say hesitation, but actually I think Sheila was just being very French, and so I, in a way, would like to withdraw my
you don't
challenge.
withdraw it. It's an incorrect challenge, but I agree with you. She was giving an impersonation, and therefore a bit hesitational. But benefit of the doubt to Sheila. Incorrect challenge. Another point to you, Sheila. 16 seconds. Old Mother Hubbard, Sheila, starting now.
And the dog is called...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of dog.
But she didn't say dog before. Jan.
She did.
She did. She talked about an old lady who had a dog, a skinny dog.
Oh, that dog. I forgot that. So well listened, Paul. 14 seconds still available. Another point to you and the subject, Old Mother Hubbard, starting now.
I was dropped behind enemy lines. My code name was Old Mother Hubbard. I was looking for a man called Pierre in the woods. I wandered around from tree to growth.
I anticipated it, sorry.
Yes.
You anticipated, and fortunately
No,
it was
it's too
incorrect.
much of an expert for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
4 seconds are still available, Paul. Another point, and old Mother Hubbard is still with you, starting now.
Old Mother Hubbard was watching A Year in Provence when she suddenly realised...
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went. He's gained that extra point. He's increased his lead ahead of Jan Ravens in second place, who's just ahead of Sheila Hancock, who's 1 point ahead of Rufus Hound. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. A lovely subject because it's close to my heart. Running away to join the circus, which I wanted to do when I was a little boy. 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
Like Nicholas, I was a big fan of the circus, which I saw as a very young boy. I was probably about 4 or 5 years old at Olympia, and it was Bertram Mills's circus. And I had this enormous desire to be on stage with the clowns, or in the ring, as it were. These strange adults that wore big boots, colourful clothes, their hair went up at the side. They lassoed each other with sausages. They threw buckets of confetti over one another. And I was transfixed by their antics, because normally grown-ups didn't behave like that. They were the ones who said to you in church, keep still, don't do that, be quiet. And yet here we suddenly were seeing 6-foot-tall people running around, men normally, who were just having the most...
Jan Chalmers.
Was it men? Repetition of men? Did he say grown men and then men?
Yes.
Yes.
You mentioned a bit from men before.
Can I interpolate a bit of information here? I was in that circus.
Oh, were you?
What? I was working with Bertram Mill Circus at Olympia.
Oh, wow.
So you'd have seen me.
Oh, well,
What
yes.
did you do? Wow.
So, Sheila, what did you do?
Well, I was poking the lions to make them roar. I was...
I hope that's not a euphemism.
Yes, right. And it was a correct challenge, wasn't it?
Yes.
So you have 20 seconds, Jan. And you tell us something about running away to join the circus, starting now.
I would like to run away and join the circus, but I would...
Paul challenge.
A hesitation,
That was
sadly.
a
The
hesitation.
repetition of would, that's why I hesitated.
So Paul, a correct challenge. Running away to join the circus, and there are 15 seconds available, starting now.
There's a contemporary...
Rufus challenge.
Hesitation.
I think there was, definitely, yes. 13 seconds. Running away to join the circus, starting now.
I would love to run away and join the circus as long as that circus was Gifford's Circus, which is directed by Cal McChrystal, who was also a big part of One Man, Two Governors, which I was lucky enough to be in the West End. That man's understanding of comedy is second to none.
So Rufus Hound, speaking as a whistle went, gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's still in third place, but he's moved. And we're moving into the final round. I will give you the situation as we do. Sheila Hancock is trailing only just in fourth place. And she's just a point or two behind Rufus Hound, who's 1 point only behind Jan Ravens. And she's 3 or 4 points behind Paul Merton, who's still in the lead. And we begin this final round with whose turn is it? Sheila's. It's your turn to begin. The subject, a satchel. Something we've all known something about and still do, starting now.
It features in the Shakespearean story of the lives of men, and I can't remember it completely, but it's something to do with the mewling schoolboy with his satchel and bright face trailing... Oh, I can't remember.
Jan, you challenge.
Well, she's
Hesitation.
hesitating and
I think
deviating
she was
because
struggling a
it's not...
bit, yes,
I
I
think she
think
was
she-
struggling a bit, but...
So, Jan, a point to you. The subject is a satchel, and 44 seconds available, starting now.
I got a satchel when I went to my secondary school, and I was very disappointed with it because I wanted a satchel like the ones the girls in the fifth form had, which were lovely and battered and lovely...
Rufus challenge.
Too lovely.
Too lovely.
Too lovely.
It's so easy to do it, isn't it? And 30 seconds still available, Rufus. You've now got a satchel starting now.
Undoubtedly, one of the greatest trumpet players of all time was Louis Armstrong, a man known to so many by a number of different nicknames, chief amongst them Satchmo. But if you didn't know what that stood for, allow me to elucidate. you. It was because his mouth was so distended from repeatedly playing the trumpet, it was seen that his mouth was like a...
Yeah, but the subject is a satchel, not a satchmo.
He was just about to get to it.
Satchel, is it a satchel mouth?
Satchel mouth was just about to get to it, yeah.
Well, it was such a long time getting there, I don't know. Give him a bonus point because we enjoyed all that. And, Jan, you challenged.
I think it was repetition of mouth.
Oh, yes, he did repeat mouth. Of course he did, right. So, Jan, a satchel, 4 seconds, starting now.
A cross-strapped satchel can really divide a person's bosom if it goes...
So, let me give you the final score. Sheila Hancock, who usually gives such tremendous value, did the same thing. The value was fantastic. The points were not very strong. And then she was only just behind Rufus Hound, who's not played it very often. And Jan Rabens, who's only played it once or twice. She did very well. She was 1 ahead, but 4 ahead of Jan in the lead, reigned there from the beginning. Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are our winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Sheila Hancock, Jan Ravens and Rufus Hound. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score. She blew her whistle with such energy. We thank our producer, Richard Morris. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're deeply indebted to this lovely audience here in the Shaw Theatre in the West End of London. From the audience... From me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye, and tune in the next time we take to the air and we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute! Is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. But also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic personalities who this week are going to play Just a Minute as they speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And those 4 lovely people are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Zoe Lyons, and seated on my left, Tony Hawkes and Gyles Brandreth. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show this week with Gyles Brandreth. Gyles, I have here the subject of a limousine, a lovely, pompous subject. 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
The first time I travelled in a limousine was some years ago in the company of the great pianist Liberace. And what a limousine he had. It was, as you would imagine, mink-lined, there was a candelabra in it, and a miniature piano on which he played to me. He was intrigued to discover that I knew the origin of the word limousine. It comes from the French town Limousin, where they have a cape traditionally made there, shaped like the front cloth of a Victorian carriage, hence the origin of limousine.
Tony Challenge.
Repetition of origin.
Yes,
You
I don't mind.
You boasted to Liberace that you knew the origin whilst he was playing piano to you in a limousine in this story that's clearly completely made up. But anyway, the point is he repeated origin.
He did. That's all we
Isn't
wanted
it
to
against
know.
the highway code to be playing a piano
think
while you're
it is.
driving at the same time?
Not if you're Liberace.
Right. Tony, a correct challenge. There are 29 seconds available. The subject is a limousine, starting now.
I always find it very amusing to look at stretch limousines and imagine a man getting out with enormous legs. But it never happens that way, and I carry on living my life in this state of terrible disappointment. It may one day, but maybe not. Anyway, moving on, Limousin, as my friend Gyles pointed out, is the origin of this, for reasons that he started to tell us about, but we found too.
Paul Challenge.
Well, it's just hesitation just sadly crept in towards the end there.
Yeah, you did, really, yes. I think you didn't know where the hell to go next.
No.
Paul, correct challenge. You have the subject of a limousine, and there are 4 seconds available, starting now.
I was once run over by a limousine. Inside was Gyles, Brandreth and Liberace, and they weren't looking where they were going. They weren't going where they were going.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Paul Merton, and he's not only in the lead, he's the only one to have scored at the end of that round. Tony Hawks, we'd like you to begin the second round, and the subject we have here is foraging. Will you tell us something about foraging, starting now?
I recently moved down to Devon and decided to take a day out on a kind of foraging expedition. And the trouble was we had to have lunch made of everything we'd collected. Fortunately, I'd smuggled a burger in my bag and didn't have to suffer in the same way that everyone else did. Because although it's a terribly good idea to go and collect
Zoe Challenge.
I think there was a repetition to collect.
Yes, you were talking about collecting.
That's
before.
absolutely.
Yeah. So Zoe Lyons, a correct challenge. You have the subject of foraging, and there are 36 seconds available, starting now.
Foraging has become very trendy of late. There are many restaurants in London that will entirely forage their menu. They will go out into the fields surrounding London area.
Oh, Paul Challenge.
A repetition of London,
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, so Paul, you've got the subject of foraging, and there are 25 seconds available, starting now.
In an episode of Hancock's Half Hour, Tony Hancock decides...
Hancock's half hour, Tony Hancock.
Yes.
Well, what's your challenge, Giles?
Repetition because of the apostrophe before the S, 2 times Hancock.
Hancock. No, he's wrong. You're wrong.
I know,
Hancock's.
but I was just trying to state it firmly in the hope that you might give me the
Hancock
benefit
and
of the doubt.
Hancock's. Right. Incorrect challenge. Another point to you, Paul. 21 seconds still available. Foraging, starting now.
The episode is called Wild...
Tony Challenge.
Repetition of episode.
Yes, you mentioned...
I said that after the buzzer last time.
I think...
This has got very
Because
technical.
Giles came straight in, you
Oh,
see.
no, but he may have said episodes the first time. One of the episodes... No, in fairness, he may have said one of the episodes of Hancock's Half Hour.
Yeah.
And then he said episode. See, I realise what a difficult job Nicholas has and how brilliantly he's been doing it.
What would I do without you?
Well, I think he did say episode and episode, I think he should have it, yeah.
Well, I was going to suggest you have it. But...
Oh.
Why don't I have it and let's compromise?
I tell you what, as you three fellows have played the game more often than Zoe Lyons, would you like Zoe to take it? And
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, Zoe, there are 19
I don't know
seconds
how that's
available.
happened, but
tell us
thank
something
you.
more about foraging starting now.
When I was a child, I used to go foraging with my grandfather. We would look for mushrooms. I used to love their velvety feel, their texture, and...
Giles Challenge.
Hesitation, I fear.
I hate mushrooms. I don't know why I said
8
that.
seconds to go. Foraging with you, Giles, starting now.
In the 1960s, I was a bit of a wild child, and I went foraging for magic mushrooms down on Hampstead Heath. But the things I discovered...
So Giles Brandreth, who's speaking as a whistle win, gained that extra point for doing so. He's leapt forward. He's behind Paul Merton, who's in the lead, and Zoe Lyons and Tony Hawks are equal in third place. And Zoe, we're with you to begin. The subject is my favourite subject at school. There are 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
My favourite subject at school was art because I wasn't tremendously academic. I didn't really enjoy maths or English. But when it came to drawing or sculpture or creating things with macaroni, I seemed to excel. I loved to paint wild, vivid images on big boards, huge, big,
Paul, your challenge.
Repetition of big, sadly.
Yes.
I was a very dynamic artist.
So, Paul,
I worked on scale.
you have the subject now of my favourite subject at school. There are 40 seconds if you need it, starting now.
My favourite subject at school was undoubtedly English. I used to enjoy writing the essays every week. There would be a topic that had been put forward by the teacher, and you were allowed to let your imagination run riot, perhaps in some way an apprenticeship for appearing on Just a Minute. I remember once I was asked to construct a story about the time that I was crossing Lake Windermere, and I saw on the horizon this rude canoe coming towards me, and there was an even stranger individual on board. At that time I was listening to this radio show, and the host, Nicholas Parsons...
Tony Challenge.
Is this a slight deviation now? He's taken us away from the subject.
Of English, the essays at school. My favourite subject,
he
English.
was writing about. So an incorrect challenge, Tony, I'm afraid. Paul, you have 7 seconds, another point. My favourite subject at school, starting now.
Mr. McClave was the person I looked up to. He was taller than the rest of us because us mere pupils weren't in the same position as him.
So Paul Merton has taken a strong lead at the end of that round. And Paul, actually, we're not back with you. It's your turn to begin. Popeye. Tell us something about that cartoon character in this game, starting now.
When I was growing up, the really only famous person that had tattoos was Popeye. He was a cartoon character created in the late 1920s, I believe, for a newspaper strip, and he later was made an absolute hero by Michael Fleischer, who was one of the people who was an animated cartoon producer. Oh.
Zoe Chan.
I think there was repetition of the cartoon.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. So well, listen, Zoe. You've got 42 seconds if you need it. Tell us something about Popeye, starting now.
I am a little bit like Popeye in that I also very much enjoy spinach. It's such a hearty veg, really keeps you going through the day. I had about 4 portions of it before I started this episode of Just a Minute, and I think you can agree it's really helping me to keep that buzz going. I feel sorry for Popeye in many ways because he did have quite an unusual physique. He very much struggled to find gloves that fitted because of the exceptional size of his forearms. So in winter he would often have to go out on his boat.
Tony Challenge.
Well, that would have been gauntlets he would have struggled with,
Yes.
rather than gloves.
Yeah.
That's
the
quite
forearms
picky,
are
admittedly, but he'd get the gloves on perfectly,
Yeah,
and then
yes,
they'd
yeah.
hit the forearms, and they'd be a perfect buffer, in a way, to
Yeah.
stop the gloves riding up too much.
I was thinking more of an evening wear glove.
Which, of course, Popeye regularly wore.
Well, he didn't because he couldn't get him over his forearms.
So what is your challenge when the rules...
Deviation, because Popeye wouldn't have struggled. Oh, I can't be arsed.
Benefit
You
of the
never
doubt.
saw him in an evening glove, Tony. You never saw him. He
Benefit of
struggled.
the doubt to Zoe Lyons, then. 16 seconds still available, Zoe. Popeye, starting now.
His wife, of course, was called Olive Oil, who was...
Giles Challenge.
Deviation, they were not married.
What have
Very
you
controversial.
suggested?
But Olive Oil was his girlfriend.
Yes, that's true.
And she was extra virgin as well, wasn't she?
Give Paul a bonus point for that last remark, which he deserves. Giles, correct challenge, 13 seconds available. Popeye, starting now.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. What a wonderful tune that was, and how melodiously I think I gave it to you just now. But Popeye...
Paul Challenge.
I disagree. I think it's one of the worst renditions of that tune I've heard today.
Actually, Giles, I've got to be honest here, it wasn't...
It wasn't melodious, was it?
It wasn't melodious.
But I did preface it by saying I think it's the most melodious. So it's merely my opinion, not
You
yours.
did say that in your opinion it was melodious.
Melodious,
And I'm
I
afraid
felt
I
so.
have to tell you, with all sincerity, I am an old friend, it was not melodious. I think I must give the benefit of the doubt to Paul here.
Okay.
And say it was not melodious. So, Paul, you have Popeye, 5 seconds, starting now.
I'm fit to the finish because I eat my spinach. I'm Popeye.
So Paul Merton, speakers of Whistle Wayne, gained that extra point and has increased his lead at the end of the round. Zoe, Lyons, Gyles, Brandreth and Tony Hawks are trailing a little behind. And Gyles, we're back with you to begin. Chequers. Start us something about checkers in this game, starting now.
As some of your listeners will know, Nicholas, once upon a time I was a member of Parliament, indeed until the people spoke. And at that time, when I was in the government, I went to Chequers, a country house given to the nation by Lord and Lady Lees in 1922 at the invitation of David Lloyd George as a residence for the Prime Minister. When I visited the then PM...
Yes, Paul Challenge.
Did we have visited before?
Yeah, I visited when you were an MP.
Do you think so?
You did say that.
I think you did.
Paul, a correct challenge. 37 seconds available. Tell us something about checkers, starting now.
Checkers is a board game that's played on a similar table designed to chess, but a much simpler way of moving it around.
Tony Challenge.
Well, I think it's actually exactly the same.
It is the same, yes.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to repeat
you
that.
said in a way you said it was similar to, but it's exactly the same.
Yes, yes.
Is that a
Well, I
bit
mean,
too
yes,
picky?
I suppose so, yes.
Is that
Yeah.
too picky? What
No,
do you
no,
think?
not at all.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think I've
sizes
ever been
and-
on a show where you and I have agreed with each other. So
What is your challenge with the rules?
Deviation.
Why?
He made a tiny error. He said that the board was similar to that as chess, and I said, no, it's not similar, it's identical.
You're correct. Right.
Okay.
Tony, a point. And the subject. 30 seconds available. Chequers starting now.
I was actually invited to Chequers by Tony Blair. Sounds like a lie, but it's the truth.
Gyles challenge.
Do you want people to know this?
So have you a challenge for the rules of just a minute?
No, I'm just trying to protect Tony's reputation. He's got a career ahead of him.
I got invited as well.
Well, that explains a great deal.
What does it explain,
Gyles, you got such a very good reaction with your remark. We give you a bonus point for that. But Tony was interrupted. He gets a point for that. He keeps the subject of checkers. 22 seconds, starting now.
It was sport relief round about that time, and I was asked to play tennis with him. He's very keen, and we played a double.
Oh, Zoe challenge.
Sorry, I think it's incorrect. I think it was played and played. Play tennis and play. No, I got that wrong.
Yes, you went there to play, and he played. Right.
Yep.
And Tony, an incorrect challenge. You've still got checkers, 14 seconds, starting now.
And then he got out this board. I thought, what's that? It looks exactly like a chess one. And we played checkers together, and now I have repeated play.
Self-confessed repetition.
Yes, right. So, Paul, you got the subject back. 5 seconds available. Checkers starting now.
64 squares. Let me delineate the colours one by one.
So Paul Merton was speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point as increases lead at the end of the round. Gyles, Brandreth, Tony Hawks and Zoe Lyons are all equal in second place. And Tony, we're with you to begin the next round. The Serengeti. Tell us about the Serengeti starting now.
I'm going to confess at the beginning of this minute that I'm not hugely knowledgeable about the Serengeti, but I do remember it featuring in a lyric by Africa, Toto with a band, and the song...
Gyles challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm afraid so. So, Gyles, you got in on the subject of the Serengeti, and there are 48 seconds available, starting now.
Alarmingly, I know even less about the Serengeti than my friend Tony Hawks, but I did visit it once. In my younger days, when I was aspiring to be a movie star, and to appear in a film called Serengeti, starring the late, great Roger Moore, who promised to teach me how to act by raising both my...
Tony challenge.
Well, he didn't.
Tony, we give you a point for a bonus there. A very good laugh there. But he was interrupted, so Gyles, you've still got the subject of the Serengeti. 28 seconds, starting now.
A night in the Serengeti is one of the most romantic experiences you may ever enjoy. There, the extraordinary sand, the wind, the sky, and wild animals coming towards you across Africa. The zebra, for example, seeing them in the half-light is an experience that
Paul
adds...
challenge.
Well, these wild animals don't come towards you across Africa. I mean, they're in the neighbourhood. They're not coming away from right at the top of Africa all the way down. They don't cross from one side of Africa to get a look at Gyles Brandreth. I know some people who make the journey the other way. Come across Africa. Never heard such rubbish in all my life.
Paul, I'm going to give you a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. But technically...
Technically, yeah, they come across Africa.
You can't say they're coming across Africa because they're walking on territory which is African.
Oh, thou wise judge, thou excellent judge.
I was more concerned about why this constituted a romantic evening with a zebra.
He's got a line in his sleeping bag.
11 seconds, Gyles. You've got another point, and you still have the Serengeti starting now.
And as dawn broke over the Serengeti, that extraordinary giraffe that I knew as Noddy came towards me and produced a long tongue and licked the side of my face.
So Gyles was speaking as a whistle away and gained that extra point. He's moved forward, but he's still in second place. But he's ahead of Tony Hawks and Zoe Lyons. But Paul Merton's still in the lead. And Zoe Lyons, we're back with you to begin. The subject now is a rubber ring. A rubber ring, Zoe, starting now.
I like to take my rubber ring down to the beach where I live in Brighton, then I will inflate it there on the shore to make sure that it is fully inflated. Oh, no! Zoe.
Tony, challenge.
Yeah, repetition of inflated or hesitation.
Correct challenge, yes.
Thank you.
51 seconds for you, Tony. A rubber ring starting now.
If you're getting married on a budget, a rubber ring is a terrific idea. I gave one to my fiancée and couldn't understand why 2 weeks later she left me for Derek. He was...
Gyles, challenge.
Afraid there was a pause there, quite a long one, I felt.
I don't think so.
No?
No,
Fine. Good.
no. He took a little breath, but
Yeah,
not
it's
long
okay.
enough to be interpreted as a pause.
He waited for the laughter.
Yeah, to subside.
I could have had another 10 seconds.
Yeah, he could have...
Incorrect challenge. Tony, you've still got the subject of a rubber ring. 38 seconds starting now.
I don't live in Brighton anymore, but I come from there, and I used to erect my tent on the beach with a rubber ring inside, away from the others, and then dash out to surprise them all and float around in the water. When the tide was out, obviously, I was further from these people. When it was in,
Well, it's just desperation now. I felt humanitarian here. I thought I was rescuing a man who was down to the level of describing the tide coming in and out in a way which he was trying to make interesting but wasn't. So it's sort of hesitation.
Just out of interest, why
No,
in
there
a
wasn't
tent, Tony, as well?
hesitation.
Why did you have to erect it in a tent, inflating a tent? Just in case I'm doing it wrong
well,
next
it's
time.
because I meant to say blow up, but happened to say erect instead. And then I created the tent to cover my
I see.
mistake.
I just thought...
I don't want to give too many secrets away about how I play this game.
Do you often confuse erect and blow up? Because although there is a similarity, there is also a major difference.
Trust me, Paul, it can make for an interesting evening.
So, Paul, what was your challenge with the rules of just a minute?
Deviation from rubber ring. He was talking about the tide going in and out. Swimming in the sea, coming back.
No, he was still in that rubber ring.
Oh, you're right, he was still in
Yeah.
the rubber ring. No,
So,
I interrupted at the wrong time because he was about to go into a great
you gave us
anecdote.
a lot of we enjoyed the interruption because it was
Yeah.
humorous banter you gave us, as always, but it wasn't correct within the rules of just a minute.
No, absolutely.
So there are 17 seconds with you still, Tony, starting now.
And I started to float towards France. This was quite a...
Wait a minute, you were just running back towards the beach, just...
It was a change of direction of the wind I was about to go into.
Oh, well, I didn't know what the meteorological conditions were on the day. It sounded like deviation to me. Don't you agree, Nicholas?
No, I don't. I'll give him a bonus point. He's working hard for it. But you get a point because you're interrupted. And there are 12 seconds for a rubber ring, Tony, starting now.
Paddle like mad, Tony, they cried from the shore, and I began...
Gyles challenge.
Repetition from of Shaw.
Yeah,
Shaw.
No,
No,
I
we
never
had
said
Shaw from Zoe, but not
No, I
Shaw from
didn't say
Tony.
Shaw.
And with that, we
I'm
are
sure.
sure. I'm confused, though. I thought you were on your way to France. How could you hear these people on the beach saying, paddle faster, Tony?
They were still within earshot. Listen to the story.
7 seconds, Tony. A rubber ring starting now.
Ha!
Oh, you challenge.
Well, that wasn't a word, was it? That was just a
That's
cry
what
of
they were
pain.
shouting on the beach. You won't let me finish my story.
So what's your challenge?
Well,
with
he just
the
went,
rules?
ha! That's not a word, is it? It's a cry for help. Which is what he was probably doing at the time when he was on the beach going towards France.
I've given you the benefit of the doubt twice in this round already, and you gain a lot of points and a lot of rubbish. And so, Paul, you've got it this time. 5 seconds to go on a rubber ring starting now.
I was in my rubber ring swimming in the sea when Tony Hawk suddenly came past me and I said, where are you off to? He said, I'm off to France.
So Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point, has increased his lead, but he's not so far ahead now. It's Tony Hawks who's now in second place. Paul, we're actually back with you to begin. A man of the people. Tell us something about it in this game, starting now.
Whenever I hear the phrase man of the people, I think of our esteemed chairman, Nicholas Parsons. Could there be a greater man of the people than the gentleman sitting right in the middle of the desk there? He has been hosting this...
Tony, how dare you challenge?
It's not a brilliant radio challenge, this, but you're not in the middle of the desk. You're on the left-hand side of the desk.
I was thinking of the whole thing as being a whole, you know...
I think, technically speaking, we knew what he meant. I'm in the middle of you two on that side, two on that side, and...
He said
Hayley
the middle of the
beside me.
desk, Nicholas. You're bound by the rules.
Oh, go on, no, give it to Tony. He can tell us more about his rubber ring.
So I don't think I can give it to you on this one, Tony. So another point to Paul. 49 seconds. A man of the people, Paul, starting now.
Admired the length and breadth of Great Britain for his sartorial elegance and his incredible judgment and skill when working on Just a Minute. I think that when I see him, that I am full of admiration because he's undoubtedly a great character. One of the men of the 18th century...
Gyles challenge.
Repetition of great.
Yes, we had a lot of greats in.
Yes, true.
I could take them all, but I'm going to be fair within the rules of Just a Minute.
Absolutely.
And say, Gyles, you're correct. 33 seconds. You tell us something about a man of the people, starting now.
In my parliamentary days, I thought I was a man of the people, but the people believed otherwise.
Tony,
sorry, that's an error. I got carried away because I heard people twice, but of course it's on the card.
Yes, on the card.
And Gyles gets another point.
He gets another point, and he has 27 seconds. Gyles, a man of the people, starting now.
As a consequence of the contempt the people showed for me, this man of the people put them in room 10 and then another number.
Sorry, Charles, I anticipated.
Yeah.
I stepped in there.
But Paul's light came on, I'm afraid.
Yes, it was hesitation.
Oh.
Because he couldn't say 101. He hesitated. He went, woom, woom, 10. Oh! As his rubber ring
I've got all
slowly
these different
deflated.
lights in front of me, and Paul was the first to press, I'm afraid. 20 seconds, still with you, Paul, a man of the people, starting now.
I was hosting that show that Gyles referred to just a moment ago, and he did indeed put it in as something that he wanted banished from the face of the earth. I looked him squarely in the eye. I had my hand on the handle that would diminish and get rid of this terrible thing that had blighted him all his life. But then I realised with a few seconds left...
So, Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point, has increased his lead at the end of the round, and it's an interesting situation as we go into the final round.
Oh, no.
Yes. And in second place, Gyles, Brandreth and Tony Hawks are equal, and they're a little way ahead of Zoe Lyons. And Gyles, we're back with you to begin. Lord Byron, tell us something about that character in this game, starting now.
As you put the question, Nicholas, I wonder to myself whether you mean the first...
Paul challenge.
Another question is a subject.
No, he said, can you tell us about...
Oh, you're right. Go on, tell us about the film that you're in.
So, Gyles, an incorrect challenge. You have another
absolutely.
point. There are 56 seconds still available. Lord Byron, starting now.
It might be the first Lord Byron, or the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth...
Paul challenge.
Repetition of Lord Byron's.
No.
The second, the third, the fourth and the fifth. There's more than one of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought that'd be funny, but it wasn't.
Anyway, Paul, he gets another point for the incorrect challenge.
Absolutely.
There are 50 seconds available still. Gyles, Lord Byron, starting now.
I'm going to take it, Nicholas, that you are actually talking about the sixth Lord Byron, George Gordon, the poet, and the man described by the wonderful Lady Caroline Lamb as mad, bad, and dangerous to know. He was, indeed, rumour has it that he had a dalliance with his own half-sister. He also was the father of Ada Lovelace, one of the most remarkable women in the history of our island, who invented the prototype computer. Lord Byron was an extraordinary versifier as well as a remarkable lover. He was so handsome, as I discovered when I went to audition for the part of the young Lord Byron in a film starring Laurence Olivier as the Duke of Wellington and...
Tony challenge.
Are you on the cutting room floor by any chance?
So, Tony, what was your challenge when the rules were different?
Just to stop him, he was getting carried away and he was going to have a heart attack.
Well, as he'd gone for quite a long time on this subject, and you can't possibly win, and nor can you, by the way, but I think I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say there are 11 seconds. You tell us something about Lord Byron, starting now.
He was very keen on the Greeks and went to fight for them in an independence battle that they were having. And that's how he died. What a heroic thing to do. We forget that although he wrote tremendous...
So let me give you the final score. So Gyles, Brandreth and Tony Hawks vying for the second place there. Finished up a little way ahead of Zoe Lyons. But out in the lead, about 10 points ahead of the others, was Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are our winner this week. So we don't need a raise. We just say thank you to these four fine players of the game. Paul Merton, Zoe Lyons, Tony Hawks and Gyles Brandreth. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score. She blew her whistle with such elegance. And we thank our producer, Richard Morris. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're also deeply indebted to this lovely audience here. So from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye. Tune in again the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to play this amazing game. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, Jan Ravens and Rufus Hound. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak, if they can, on the subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And we begin the show this week with Rufus Hound, who better? And the subject, Rufus, is hibernating. Tell us something about hibernating in this game, starting now.
My mum would often say to me when I was a teenager that getting me out of bed was one of the great frustrations of her life. I should just set an alarm and greet the day with a sunny disposition, but instead, as the sun would find its way to peak position in the sky, I would be within my cave, snoring like a bear, hibernating. You could say, I suppose, were I a furry mammal, and in gay slang that may indeed be the case, because I know that there are all sorts of different animals that one can associate with in order to imply to other homosexual men that you are attractive.
Paul, you have challenged.
Well, unusually, repetition of homosexual.
Paul, correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course.
Can I also award Paul any of my points that I may have accrued so far? Because I'm pretty sure you just saved me from myself. So thank you. If there was any kind of donation scheme I could...
There isn't. I don't know what you're talking about, actually. Paul, correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course. And you have 22 seconds if you need it to talk about hibernating starting now.
Hibernating is something that a lot of people in the animal kingdom do. Animals such as tortoises and others. I once had a tortoise and his name was Jimmy Greaves.
Sheila Hancock.
One was plural.
Yeah, one was plural, one was singular.
Yeah. Tortoises.
Tortoise and tortoises, yeah.
Yeah, there was animal and animals as
Animal
well.
and
He's very
animals,
good, you see.
yes.
He's very good.
Yeah. It's a shame, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he should be good. He plays it every week.
Whether I'm on the show or not. It's a lonely existence. I make cardboard figures of everybody and I sit around.
So unfortunately, Sheila, no, not a repetition.
No.
So he keeps the subject and he has a point for that, for being interrupted. 13 seconds are still available, Paul. Hibernating starting now.
The creature that I mentioned earlier that has his own shell, we put into a box in the shed, and we didn't realise that when it gets warm during the winter months, this particular manifestation of life will suddenly wake up and say to itself,
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes in just a minute gains an extra point, and it was Paul Merton who at the end of the first round is the only one to have scored any points. And Jan Ravens, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject I have in front of me is cooking the books. Tell us something about cooking the books in this game, if you can, starting now.
Cooking the books is something that is done by companies in order to cheat the revenue out of some taxes that they have to pay. Perhaps the most famous person who cooked the books was Martha Stewart, quite appropriately, since she was a cook and she deceived the people who wanted her to give the money that she had earned to an appropriate...
Who challenged on that one? It was Sheila Hancock. What's your challenge, Sheila?
Oh, God, I can't remember.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes.
Yes, you did
Hesitation.
hesitate. So, Sheila...
What's the subject?
Right, I am going to tell you. Cooking the books.
Oh, yeah.
34 seconds if you need it, starting now.
Well, I'm a very bad cook, so I often do cook the books. I throw the recipes of Delia and all of them.
Paul challenge.
Well, it's a bit of hesitation.
There was, yes.
A little bit.
Also, it's got nothing to do with cooking the books.
Well, I was going to say I actually cook the recipe books into a soup.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't come round to your place for dinner, then.
Alphabet soup.
Book soup. Yeah. Right. So, Paul, a correct challenge. And there are 25 seconds available. Cooking the books, starting now.
When I was running a catering agency, it was my job to book all these chefs. In fact, I was booking the cooks. And then I realised I was getting around the wrong way because my tax returns were a disaster. I had an inspector come round from the revenue. He looked at the various columns where I'd written my profits and my losses, and he said, "This is idiotic." I said, "I'm afraid I have CSE Grade 5 mathematics. That makes me completely enumerate." He said, "There's only one place for you to go." I said, "No, it will have to be prison." It will have to be prison.
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went then, gained that extra point. Sheila, it is your turn to begin, and the subject now we'd like you to talk about is Liberace. Tell us something. Well, you can laugh, but it's a good subject for just a minute.
Yeah.
And 60 seconds if you need it. Sheila, starting now.
I think Liberace was a lovely guy. He was known as Lee, and obviously he famously was gay, but was in a period when it wasn't allowed, so he had to pretend he wasn't. But he had a wonderful panache. He started off, I believe, as a proper classical performer, and indeed, I believe he actually played Liszt's piano concerto.
Rufus challenge.
To believe.
Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
I thought I got away with that.
And,
I was weighing up whether or not to challenge because I know absolutely naff all about Liberace.
Everybody knows about
it doesn't really matter in this game. As some people have demonstrated on occasions. So flannel away, Rufus, in any way you can, and you have 37 seconds in which to do it on the subject of Liberace, starting now.
The life and times of Liberace were put onto celluloid with Michael Douglas starring as the famous pianist. Matt Damon took the role of his boyfriend at the time, and it charted the choppy romance between the pair of them, where love may not speak its name in a previous and hitherto gone unfortunate...
So you didn't know anything about him, but you did very well. You went for quite a few seconds. Sheila, you challenge first.
Yeah, hesitation.
Hesitation. There's still 17 seconds available, Sheila, to tell us more about Liberace, starting now.
A great feature of his act was his costumes. He had the most elaborate Diamante fur, trains, extraordinary, and he had a wonderful house with a piano-shaped swimming pool. He was the most exotic thing, with a candelabra on his instrument.
So Sheila Hancock, speaking as a whistle when, gained an extra point, and she's increased her lead at the end of the round. Rufus, Hound, it's due to begin, and you have 60 seconds if you need it on this subject. A cat suit. Tell us something about a cat suit in this game, starting now.
People said it was foolish of me to hang around outside that vet looking in the bin for all the discarded dead animals. But once I had done that, I was able to make myself a cat suit. It was unfortunate in many regards that those animals had to have their lives ended.
Oh, Sheila.
Two animals.
There are two animals. Well, listen, Sheila. You have another point, of course. You have the subject, a cat suit, and there are 44 seconds available, starting now.
A cat suit is usually an outfit that is very tightly fitting, possibly with a zip up the front, and has slightly sexual connotations, I think. However, the last one I saw was worn by that fabulous tennis player whose name at the moment evades me, but she was wearing one of sort of black leathery look, and it was absolutely beautiful. However, I remember during the war...
Paul challenged.
Did we have however before?
Probably, yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
So, Paul, well listened? And there are 17 seconds still available. You tell us something about a cat suit starting now.
In the TV series Batman from the 1960s, he has many arch-villains up against him, one of whom was Catwoman, played by several actresses over the run of the series. There was Lee Merriweather, Eartha Kitt, and she was an arch-villainess in her cat suit, purring away in her evil tones.
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went then, gained that extra point. And Jan, we're back with you to begin. And the subject is, a very modern one, hard hats. Tell us something about hard... I don't know what's funny about that, but I'm glad you've laughed. Any comedy, any laughter is valuable. You have 60 seconds if you need it, Jan, on hard hats starting now.
Hard hats are worn by men, usually, on construction sites and such like, because they need to protect their heads from falling bricks or pieces of scaffolding pole or something like that. And they now are usually made of plastic with a bit...
Sheila, challenge.
Is it another usually? Are usually worn on...
Yes, I think you're right, Sheila. I think you are.
You are right, Sheila. You listened well then.
There we are.
And you got a point for a correct challenge. And 42 seconds still available, Sheila.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. I'm glad I got that.
Hard hats. Starting now, Sheila.
Whenever I think of hard hats, I think of politicians. There's so many photos, aren't there, of members of the royal family and our House of Commons.
Jan, you've challenged.
I don't know what she's talking about. What's this got to do with hard hats?
I've never seen a member of the royal family.
Photographs. You've always got photos of politicians with hard hats.
Okay.
George Osborne.
I did say photographs.
Yeah.
I think of the royal family with hard hats. I've never seen one.
You do. You see Prince of Wales.
Yeah.
Even Theresa May.
They go and then they wear silly hats going to cake factories. And
yes, like a
that.
little white trilby, like you're working on the meat counter.
Yeah.
But those aren't hard hats.
No.
Those are soft hats.
No, but Sheila is right. Yes, incorrect challenge. I think.
All right. Well, you're very sporting there, Jan. And Sheila,
I
got
am
a
very
point.
sporting. People have said that before.
32 seconds is still available, Sheila. So, Sheila, we're still with you, and there are 32 seconds available.
I thought it was 22 last time.
No, this is 32.
Oh.
32.
It's nice to see somebody enjoying her work, isn't it?
Sheila.
Okay.
You have the subject. 32 seconds. Hard hats starting now.
There's a hat called...
Paul challenge.
Well, I was so upset that Sheila had 32 seconds to speak that I thought I'd interrupt with a pointless challenge so she'd have slightly less.
Thank you.
What a lovely gesture.
Yeah.
Sheila, you have another point. You have the subject. 31 seconds.
That took longer than 1 second. There's something gone wrong with your watch.
And there are 31 seconds telling me for Sheila Hancock on hard hats starting now.
Oh, well, I wasn't ready.
Darling, I gave you plenty of notice.
You sort of threw it in. I'm starting now. You didn't go starting now. Like you normally do.
All right, I'll try and do it differently this time.
Yes, yeah, go on.
Yeah.
And there are 29 seconds available.
That's good.
The subject is hard hats.
Yes.
And your time starts now.
Lovely. Bowler hats could be counted as hard hats or evening hats. Even hats that you play cricket in and baseball. All sorts of games need hard hats. However, I don't usually play those sort of games, but if I did...
Jan challenge.
Games.
Yeah, games.
Yeah.
So, Jan, you have the subject?
Well, good luck.
Thanks, mate.
11 seconds. Tell us something more about hard hats starting now.
Hard hats were not always made out of plastic. When people first started needing...
Rufus challenge.
Did you say plastic before?
You did
Yes,
say
I
plastic before.
did.
Yeah, I know. So, well, listen, Rufus, you've got in with 6 seconds to go. Those are the rules of the game. 6 seconds, Rufus. Hard hats starting now.
A trilby, a deerstalker, and a fez walk into a pub.
Sheila, you
They're not hard. A deerstalker's not hard.
No, none of those are hard.
Well, The subject is hard hats.
I know, but
You're
I've got as
talking
far
about
as
soft hats.
I've got as far as okay. If that's how this game is played, then be on guard, Hancock.
3 seconds, Sheila. Finishing this round on hard hats starting now.
Hard hats are worn by little gnomes.
Rufus is challenged.
Repetition of worn.
Yes, you did use the word worn. So, Rufus, you've gone in with 1 second to go. Hard hats. Having got another point for a correct challenge, of course. Starting now.
Bob the Builder.
So at the end of that round, Sheila Hancock's in the lead. She's 2 ahead of Paul, Merton and Rufus Hound, and then Jan behind them. And Sheila, it is your turn to begin, and the subject now we'd like you to talk about is the red carpet. A lot we hear about these days. 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
The red carpet is what they call when you go into a BAFTA Awards or Oscars or something like that, and you're supposed to dress up and look glamorous. I loathe it. And my dear husband, John Thor, used to dread winning a prize because he knew he was going to have to walk down the red carpet in order to receive it. And his little sweaty hand was gripping mine. And the people that interview you say things like, "What designer are you wearing?" And I always say vintage, meaning it's an old dress, because I am never wearing the so-called designers. And it is a boring, endless, awful evening after you've paraded down this rather grubby red carpet. Everybody thinks it's glamorous, but I assure you it is not.
Rufus challenge.
Repetition of glamorous.
Yes, glamorous. You mentioned glamorous before. I'm glad you've taken the subject away from us. Well,
I'm not. I was really enjoying it.
Well, I was thinking, you know, this is a glamorous occasion, a red carpet. Why debase the whole thing? If you don't want to go, darling, don't go. But let those who enjoy it, and the public love it, they love all the glamour of the occasion. That's what part of show business is about. We create glamour for people to be happy and uplifted. It's something we're trying to do with this audience here who've gone very quiet. So who challenged? I think it was you, Rufus.
It was,
yes.
yeah.
And you've got 10 seconds still available on the red carpet starting now.
One of my first jobs ever was working as a reporter on the red carpet, and I'll never forget Sheila Hancock walking towards me, and I said to her, "What are you wearing?" And she said, "Vintage."
So Rufus Hound was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, and he's now equal in the lead with Sheila Hancock, and trailing a little way behind is Paul Merton and then Jan Ravens. Paul, we're with you to begin now, and the subject is a sunbed. Tell us something about that in this game starting now.
Liberace was very fond of sunbeds. He used to go to a particular shop in Las Vegas and say, "I would like a sunbed." And he would get down and he would get a magnificent tan, and it seemed to be seen as a oh, dear me.
Rufus challenged.
Scene. Repetition.
Yes. And you have the subject, and you have 49 seconds available. A sunbed is the subject starting now.
I went to Habitat where in the front window there was a treehouse bed, and I took it home and made it for my son. I know that this is not necessarily what you might consider to be a sunbed in inverted commas, but where one projects...
Paul challenged.
Oh, hesitation, sadly.
Yeah, only just.
Yes, only just sadly.
But it was correct. So the benefit of the doubt, Paul, a sunbed is back with you. 34 seconds available, starting now.
When I was held next to the slab of stone...
Rufus challenge.
Did you say telled?
Held. When I was held next to the slab of stone...
It sounded like you said when I was telled next to the slab of stone.
Oh, yes, old English word for held.
Now, I know you're
I think that's tollocks.
Give Rufus a bonus point for that, because we did enjoy his humour. But I'm closer to him than you, and I did think I said he had held.
No, I think I did mispronounce. I did say...
Giving it to Rufus?
Yeah.
Well, you've got a bonus point, and now you've got the subject. And you've got 31 seconds. A sunbed, Rufus, starting now.
Doctors in this day and age obviously suggest to young women who are looking to make themselves browner to stay off the sunbed. The trend arose a few years ago for people to be a touch more orange in their appearance. supplements, but overdoing it can lead to skin cancer, lymphoma of all different kinds, and lymphoma, isn't it?
Yes.
It's lymphoma.
Oh, Mr. Pronunciation.
It's mispronunciation.
Sheila, your challenge.
Yeah, hesitation.
Yes, right. You have 11 seconds. And the subject is a sunbed still, starting now.
When I was a teenager, I had very bad acne, and one of the things recommended was a sun lamp. So I used to go to the local hospital and lie on a bed and have...
So Sheila Hancock is speaking as a whistle-wind, gained that extra point. And she's doing well. She's way ahead. She's in the lead. In Paul Merton's trailing behind her. And then it's Rufus, Hound, and then Jan Raymond's in that sequence. And Rufus, we're back with you to begin. This is an interesting subject. If I changed my name by deed poll, that's as a subject. Take it any way you want. And you have 60 seconds if you need it. Starting now.
If I changed my name by deed poll, I would choose the name Umberto Capotway, because I don't know why, but it's always been the name that has sprung most immediately to the forefront of my mind when I am required to come up with a pseudonym of some description. I don't know what it is about the exotic sounds that those...
Sheila challenge.
I don't in the least want the subject, but it was hesitation and there was some repetition as
you're
well.
Right. You don't need to emphasise it, Sheila. You have a correct challenge. You have another point. You have 40 seconds if you need it. If I change my name by deed poll, starting now.
If I changed my name by deed poll... My name? Well, it would be your posh name. It would be a name like Lady Asper.
But Paul, you challenge.
Well, mispronunciation. Ironically, it's catching.
Yes. Deviation from the subject, of the title of the subject. Paul, a correct challenge. 37 seconds available. If I change my name by deed poll, starting now.
When I became a member of Equity in the 1980s, I did actually have to change my name. My real name is Paul Martin, but I had to change it to...
Sheila challenge.
Oh, it's on the card. Had to.
No,
Yeah.
no, what were you going to say?
I was going to say repetition of had to.
That's not on the card.
That's not on the card.
Oh, well, there was a repetition of had to.
Yes,
I had to change my name and
No,
I had
absolutely.
to.
Yes. Correct challenge, Sheila. The subject is if I change my name by deed poll, and you have 29 seconds starting now.
If I changed my name by deed poll, it would probably be because I was a criminal and I wanted to go undetected. And in which case, I would make it an interesting name like...
Paul challenge.
Hesitation, sadly.
Yes, there was. So, Paul, you have 17 seconds. You take the subject back. And another point you've got, of course, if I change my name by deed poll, starting now.
If I change my name by deed poll, I would... Oh.
By name?
What?
If I changed by name.
Oh, did I?
Didn't you?
I don't know, I might have done.
It's such a dreadful subject. Who thought of this?
Whoever it was, he's changed his name by now.
I think we would charge any points on that and say, Paul, you still have the subject. 14 seconds to go. If I changed my name by deed poll, starting now.
If I changed my name by deed poll, undoubtedly the name I would choose would be Nicholas Parsons. What better name could you have than that of our chairman, known throughout Europe as the Masked One?
I'm sorry you blew the whistle there. I'm rather enjoying that last bit. And we're moving into the final round. I will give you the situation, as we do. Jan Ravens, who's played the game before, done very well. Not doing quite so well this time, but she's in a very strong fourth place. And she's a few points behind Rufus Hound,
yes,
who's only 3 points behind Paul Merton. And Paul is 2 points behind Sheila Hancock, who is still in the lead. And, Jan, it's your turn to begin. And the subject now is reading the meter. Can you tell us something about reading the meter in this game starting now?
I used to like it when a man came round to the door and said, "Excuse me, please can I read the meter?" And you let him in. He didn't have any identification or anything like that, but you just trusted him.
Rufus challenge.
Yes, I don't know quite what I did. I think it was a repetition of something, but I've forgotten what it was, so I stand down.
So Jan had an incorrect challenge?
Yeah.
Well, she had a challenge which wasn't justified, so she gets a point. 43 seconds, Jan. Reading the meter, starting now.
Now you have to read your meter online.
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of read.
Oh, gosh, yes, it's
Bang
reading the
comes down to
meter.
Reading the meter.
It's a tough game, isn't it?
Yeah. OK, you know.
I share your disappointment.
I know. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know.
They were going to get the last bus.
So, Paul, a correct challenge, so we give it to you. And there are 46 seconds still available. Tell us something about reading the meter, starting now.
I was living in a bedsit in Streatham in the 1980s, and the landlord pointed out the meter to me and said, you must put 50 pence in this, but don't wait for the meter to run out. Just keep putting the money in. So I did this for about 4 or 5 weeks until I suddenly forgot to do it and realised that actually the meter wasn't connected to anything at all. And the man who was renting me the property was just putting the money...
Jan, challenge.
Repetition of man.
That's the man you mentioned before.
Was it not landlord?
Maybe.
I thought it was landlord.
No, it was me that said man.
Yeah. I mean, if it helps, I have said it out of the context of this programme many times.
I'm sorry.
She's remembering what she said and challenging me because I didn't say it.
Myself.
She's challenging herself.
Right. Well, I'll give you a point for challenging yourself, Jan. Because it was correct. But, Paul, you get a point because it was incorrect.
Yeah.
And the 26 seconds starting now.
So I decided that he was good. Well,
Sheila challenge.
Yeah, hesitation.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it's sometimes difficult to pick it up after you've been interrupted like that.
Yeah.
Sheila, you've got 23 seconds on reading the meter, starting now.
Reading the meter in my house is really difficult. It's in a dark cupboard and it's very high, so I'm clambering on boxes with the man standing by me waiting for the decision. And I put the numbers down and hand them to him, and he says, "Thank you very much, Miss Hancock. You're very good at reading the meter." And I say...
So Sheila Hancock was then speaking to the whistle went and gained an extra point for doing so. Well, I'm going to give you the final score. Yes. So Jan Rabens and Rufus Hound have not played the game quite so much. Came equal in third place. Few points behind Paul Merton, who sometimes excels in this game, but today he was tipped to the post by Sheila Hancock by 2 points. So we say, Sheila, you are the winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Sheila Hancock, Jan Rabens and Rufus Hound. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score. She blew her whistle with such energy. We thank our producer, Richard Morris. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're deeply indebted to this lovely audience here in the Shaw Theatre in the West End of London. From the audience... From me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye, and tune in the next time we take to the air and we play Just a Minute.